Trigun is one of the best shows that I think I've ever watched. It was something that I really did enjoy, and it's something that I deeply appreciated, and it was very profound. So, I'm going to spend the first half of this explaining why I think you should watch it if you haven't, and then in the second half I'm going to go more in depth, which will include a few spoilers if you're not into that sort of thing. So, Trigun is set on a desert planet far out in space. It's based on the idea that there was a ship carrying a bunch of cryogenically held people, and what ended up happening is that the ship crashed into this desert planet. Now this planet seems to be it's almost in an atmosphere that's very similar to the Wild West, and that's what leads to some pretty wonky characters and weapons. One of the great things about this show that sets it apart is its beloved cast of unique but simple characters. There's Vash the Stampede, who happens to be the star of the show, being the crazy gunman who has a $60 billion double dollar bounty on his head. Yes, I did say double dollars.
There's a hostage situation in there. You want to die? Huh? Dang fool! They're shooting at him!
He's dodging the bullets.
Dodging? That freak doesn't even realize he's being shot at.
Looks like he's going inside. Hey,
Who are you supposed to be?
are you suicidal? Or too stupid to know better? Huh? Help somebody, robbers! Help somebody!
Like he's a light-hearted man with few concerns, but the main driving force he has is to save lives in whatever situation he's in. His favorite quote being, "You killed them. Even though they did terrible things, the decision of who you should and should not live was never and never will be yours to make." Then we have our companion characters, Meryl and Millie Thompson of the Bernardellian Insurance Society, which works to make sure that Vash does not cause property damage. So Millie is a peppy woman child whose personality is sharply contrasted by her height and taste in weapons. And my personal favorite character, because she seems to exist to lighten the show's mood. Also the victim of great disregard, even though she seems to be the most perceptive person of any of the cast. Then you have Meryl, a somewhat annoying but likable woman who takes charge over Millie in her quest to keep an eye on Vash. Seeming to understand that she is just working, she does a good job of putting the situations into perspective, while being the only sane person in this show, and I mean that very legitimately. She is the only person that seems to have a functioning brain. She helps guide the show through some of the darker tones. Like whenever something serious is happening, she's able to make it make sense, if you get what I mean. Then there's Wolfwood, the traveling priest who carries a man-sized metal crucifix that is full of pistols, machine guns, and missile launchers. And no, I'm not creative enough to make this up. He is a near carbon copy of Vash, maintaining a lot of similar personality traits, but he doesn't have quite the same thou shalt not kill lifestyle that Vash does, which leads to some controversy later on in the story. If you're still not sure about this, then I would recommend that you watch the first episode. If you like the first episode, simply put, you're probably going to like the rest of the show. The first episode is going to be dubbed on YouTube. It's going to be dubbed by Funimation. By the way, the dub is, in fact, amazing. I have to say that this is probably the best dub that I've ever heard. Yeah, check it out. It's good. By the way, I'm going to provide a link in the description to that video, so just click on that. Now, I think one of the great parts about this show that kept me on the edgy part of my seat was whether or not Vash would end up killing anybody. You know, at the beginning of most shows like this, you think, well, this is just how these shows work. His morals are going to be tested, and eventually he's going to put in an insurmountable situation, and eventually he'll break. and he'll just have to kill somebody to save somebody. And as you watched him go through situation and situation in this show, where he was able to escape without killing anybody, you slowly lost confidence in that idea. And at the, I guess, sort of the middle part of the show, you're not really sure whether or not he's actually going to kill anybody. And that was something that I really, really couldn't figure out. But I'll just leave you wondering on that. And the age-old question for shows like this, will he die? Well, I'll leave both of those to simmer and let you figure out by watching. Now, time for a big warning. Spoilers ahead. If you don't like spoilers, get out or leave or something like that. So, spoiler warning. He kills Legato, the bad guy. Now, Legato has the power to control people with his mind and chooses to make a town surround and kill the insurance girls. And Vash has to kill Legato. With Legato being killed, Vash does in fact break. But one of the great things about this show is that unlike the predictability of a lot of shows like this, they really did this cleverly. What made this nice is that it was relevant to the plot. You had Vash, who had never killed anyone before, and then you have his brother, who's a mass murderer. So his brother, in trying to feel better about himself, probably tried to get Vash to kill somebody just so that he could experience it and be imperfect. So now that Vash was a murderer, that made the story interesting. And it was very interesting in that sense, because you see a lot of other shows like this where the person's morals are tested and then they end up having to go through a situation and they end up breaking and they have to do something terrible, and there's that loss of innocence that's so common in shows like this. But the problem with a lot of those shows is that they'll bring a situation out of nowhere. It'll be a bad guy or some force that shows up at the beginning of that episode, and by the end of this episode you have this massive situation. And it really does mess it up when you have something that comes out of nowhere testing the morals. I mean, it doesn't feel right. But this show was able to incorporate it into the story, and it was able to decide the fate of the series as a really great climax. I mean, it was really cleverly done, in my opinion. Simply put, it was refreshing to see this cliche situation being played in a very original and well thought out manner. Anyway, thanks for watching, and have a great day.